Saturday, the 25th of May. Two faiths, two different perspectives. One origin, Ethiopia. RasIadonis, Rabbi, Lion of Judah Society. The faithful of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. A scholarly discourse on the subject. Who is the Lion of Judah of Revelation chapter 5? Get your tickets today.
Prosperity is a herbal remedy that has been naturally designed to nourish the prostate gland. Prosperity uses a combination of leaves, roots, and barks to create a tincture designed to nourish your prostate gland. It also will assist in prostate-related issues such as erectile dysfunction, swollen prostates, and problems related to the passage of urine. Call or WhatsApp 728-8289, 728-8289 and get your bottle today. Prosperity.
Are you searching for unique handmade Black cultural crafts, t-shirts, and accessories? Look no further. Introducing your ultimate destination for the vibrant and captivating creations that celebrate Rastafari and African culture. At Black Dominion, we bring you a curated collection of exquisitely designed, crafted products honoring the rich heritage of Rastafari, Ethiopia, and the Black diaspora. With our user-friendly website, shopping is a breeze. We ship worldwide, bringing Black culture to every corner of the globe. Visit www.blackdominion.shop today and start exploring the incredible range of handmade Rastafari and Black culture. Find your inspiration, embrace your roots, and stand out from the crowd.
Oh yes, give thanks for your presence with us. Life giver and the keeper of life. Blessed love to each and every. Give thanks for your presence at this hour. Welcome once again. You are still here in the Tiger's Nest, just blessing each and every one coming over from Radio Anu. You're still on Radio Anu TV. We're talking about the international flavor, the universal spice. Honorable Priest Isaac here with you. And as you can see, the Rabbi is with us, RasIadonis, representing the Lion of Judah Society. Give thanks, royal family, for the Lion of Judah Society, which has been doing a lot of work throughout the decades. You know, a lot of us, even a lot of the education that we would have received, a lot of these manuscripts that would have been preserved, you know, a lot of these books that many of us quote from. If you just take the time to look at the publication, you'll be shocked and say, well, this is RasIadonis and them man, the Lion of Judah Society. My brother, blessed love, give thanks for your presence with us. Always everything on your side and, you know, in righteousness of salvation. Blessed.
Salam to Tena Estelin, and like to say, you know, Melkam Burhana Tinsayo Adarasachu. You know, may a beautifully good, you know, in Kwandehna, a beautifully good light of his resurrection. Speaking of the May 5th, 2024, in this season right here, which corresponds to the return of the King of Kings, Negusa Neges Ze Ethiopia, the King of Kings of Ethiopia, Kedemawi Haile Selassie, Negusa Neges Ze Ethiopia. Yes, as well as it corresponds the return of the King, May 5th, 5 years to the very day, 36, May 5th to 1941, May 5th. Corresponds in the movable feast of the Orthodox, the Ethiopian Oriental churches. It marks Resurrection Day. We call Passover or Fasika. Culminates, it fulfills with that morrow after the Shabbat resurrection, that first day resurrection, that Ehud resurrection, also known as in the West as Sunday resurrection, you know? So I wanted to greet ones right there with the reason for the season right here, Return of the King, Resurrection Day of the Messiah, of Christos, Jesus, of Yeshua HaMoshiach, of Jesus of Nazareth. Yeah, which we call the King of Kings Christ. I'll put that there because I think that's going to figure within, the reasoning here and moving forward. But give thanks. Greet and bless the audience in the name of the King of Kings and Christ, Jesus Christos. Yes, sir.
Yes, my Lord. Well, give thanks again for your presence, as you know, and as the family knows by now, for as well as you're highlighting that today's, well, not today exactly, today is the 6th, but the 5th being Ethiopian Liberation Day. Well, for the 25th, which is African Liberation Day, we have a wonderful sit-down plan where we will be going into what we consider a very important subject, especially for those who are into the theological discourse and reasoning. I mean, many of us will go and study theology in some institution or the other. So it just shows you that reasoning is better than preaching, as Rastafari would say. So on the 25th, family, for those who are just getting the word, on the 25th day of May, we will be having an online webinar sit-down presentation. This promises to be a scholarly discourse. My good brother RasIadonis will be with us, along with a member of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Again, you know that our brothers from time to time of the Orthodox Church, specifically Brother Amdar Jack and Brother Haile, would come and sit with us, and we always go into some deep reasoning. And of course, one of the conversations we had, I would have replayed an episode I had with Brother Haile just a few nights ago, is, the divinity of Haile Selassie I and these different titles that we see the king would have received, like King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So we decided that we want to have a scholarly sit down. As I've been telling those who will be partaking of this, we don't want to go into it with the mentality of a debate. There's nothing wrong with a debate. In fact, a debate is a scholarly discourse. But the term debate, like many other terms, would have been soiled in this day and time. And somehow when you say debate, I don't know, SummerSlam and WrestleMania seems to come to mind. And I'm going to defeat him. And one fella told me a day, I could never forget this. The man tell me he'll debate with me anytime, anywhere. So I asked him, what's the subject? He said, anything. I said, I mean, we mean anything. Listen, brother, I'm not into that level there at all. I want to learn. I'm not coming to prove that I'm Goliath or something. I want to learn. I want to enhance, my knowledge of things. So by right, a debate is a scholarly sit down. The thing, what a debate really is that you're going to get ample time to express yourself. The other person gets ample time to express themselves. And then afterwards, each individual has an opportunity to give an analysis of what they heard the other person say. That's all. There's no need for any argument in between. So this is why we intend to have a scholarly sit down. The Honorable RasIadonis and one of the brothers from the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, who are quite versed within themselves, and they will be presented, whether PowerPoint, they have the choice to present with PowerPoint if they desire, or if they just want to, speak it out. Their point may be so powerful that they don't need any pictures. It's up to them. And they will explain to the audience, not to me, but to the audience, why they think whoever they're going to highlight as the Lion of Judah to be the Lion of Judah. Now, before I bring in the good Rabbi, let me just give you a quick rundown from my perspective. You see, the reason why this would be a very timely conversation for those who like intellectual understanding of things is because when we speak of the Lion of Judah, of course, we can get theological and we can even get geopolitical. As I was telling the good Rabbi earlier, even within the Ethiopian scope of things, Haile Selassie is the Lion of Judah. Our counterparts might just jump up and say, listen, brother, there's no discussion here. There's only one King of Kings, only one Lord of Lords, only one Lion of Judah. And I understand how an individual will feel about that. But if we take that out of our feelings and we just look at it historically, you could argue that Menelik II is also the Lion of Judah. Johannes IV is the Lion of Judah. Even the Empress Zaditu, yes, it could be argued that Haile Selassie was coronated, which is another thing by itself, with that title. That's why we call him the Triple Crown Monarchy, the Lion of Judah. And again, I'm not being dogmatic. I'm not even trying to push my point. I mean, I know where I stand, but I'm just showing the audience the mind frame around the subject. Because on the theological level now, and I want us to listen to this, good, eh? On the theological level, remember, it's not who is the Lion of Judah we're asking. Who is the Lion of Judah in Revelation 5? Now, in Revelation 5, what's interesting, in Revelation 4, it speaks about this man that sits on the throne. I want everyone to listen to me good. In Revelation 4, it speaks about this man sitting on the stone, and he's described, I think like a sardine stone, and he has the rainbow over his head. And most Rassis will say, hey, that represents Haile Selassie, the King of Kings sitting on the throne with the rainbow covenant. Okay, fair enough. Now, in Revelation 5, we come back to the same man. He was still sitting on the throne. And what was interesting about the man sitting on the throne now is that he had a book in his hand. And on the backside, this book was sealed with 7 seals. All right, good. So, the author of Revelation, John the Divine, he was quite perturbed. He was like crying and things because he was saying, now, who is it? Because no one could be found worthy in the heavens, the earth, and round the corner that could come to this man on the throne and take the book out of the hand of the man on the throne and then loose the 7 seals. And so the man on the throne was just sitting with the book. And no one could approach the man on the throne and take the book and say, I can do it. And one of the elders said unto John, don't worry, dry up your tears. Someone is coming, yeah? Who? The Lion of the tribe of Judah. Hear this. He has prevailed. So that means he done conquer something already. That's why he can come. He has prevailed to come and take the book, because I read the thing properly, not just to bust the seals now. You have to take the book first. And then after he take it, he gonna open the seals. And John said, wow, well, I can dry up my tears. I feel good because the Lion of Judah coming. Then all of a sudden somebody knock on the door. Who is it? There's a lamb outside with 7 eyes and 7 horns. Well, tell him come back, because we're waiting for the lion. No, he said he come to take the book out of the hand of him that sitteth upon the throne. Now, let me be clear here. Remember, Rasta said that the man that's sitting on the throne is the King of Kings, Haile Selassie. Remember, he have the book in his hand. He waiting for the Lion of Judah to come and take the book, and a lamb appear. So now, okay, all right. So we end into some different level of theology here now. So what are we saying? Because obviously the easiest thing to go for is our understanding of Christianity, that there was somebody that came 2,000 years ago. Now, ancient Christianity may tell you every dispensation someone comes. That's why in this dispensation you have a 12th Melchizedek, a Christ figure within himself. Yes, colonialized Christianity has a very narrow outlook of the Christ figure. So it's just this person here alone, and 2,000 years ago. Rastafari will come and say, well, the man come back again as the Lion of Judah. Okay. Now, what I'm saying, so when the lion, remember, John didn't see a lion. He heard the man tell him, hey, the lion coming, and he see a lamb. So what are we to believe? Is
Mm.
the lamb 2,000 years ago that came back as the lion? Or is it the lion that just naturally has the lamb spirit within him? And this man that's sitting on the throne is another thing. Because in the book of Daniel chapter 7, the man that was sitting on the throne was called the Ancient of Days. Remember, Daniel 7 is Revelation 5. Very few people will disagree with me with that. Very, very, very few. I mean, even outside of Rastafari, because Daniel's vision is a revelation. That's the revelation of Daniel. Revelation is the revelation of John, In fact, some theologians say all prophets have a revelation. Now, what I'm saying, and I'm almost done, believe me, when I free up for our visitor, not our guest, because I know he's not going to be guessing. When I free up, believe me, the floor is his. I'm just showing you, because one said that Christ is the second Adam 2,000 years ago. So is Haile Selassie the third Adam? What I'm saying is that it's easy to say, well, the Christ 2,000 years ago was the Lion of Judah too. Okay. But I'm getting the impression that the Lion of Judah is a specific person at a specific time. Quickly back to Daniel. In Daniel, Daniel said that he saw, after the thrones were cast down, the Ancient of Days did sit. And he described him, the woolly hair and the brass and everything. And then he said, in the night vision, one like unto the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and he was brought unto the Ancient of Days. And what stands out here is that what happened in Daniel 7 is the same thing that happened in Revelation 5. It says that the Ancient of Days gave the Son of Man a kingdom and dominion and power everlasting, which is the same thing that the man on the throne gave, well, I guess, to the Lamb in Revelation 5. And here it is. Daniel goes on to say, and then there were thousands times 10,000s of angels, which when you return to Revelation, it's the same number of angels that witnessed when the man on the throne and the Lamb had the encounter, which again leads us to see more facts that Daniel 7 is Revelation 5. I think that is without a doubt. But what I'm saying is that in Daniel 7, the Ancient of Days that sat on the throne is the same man that sat on the throne in Revelation 5. And Rasta say that the Ancient of Days is Haile Selassie the first that sit on the throne. But the man that sit on the throne have the book. He didn't open the book. Maybe he sealed the book, but he's not the one that opened the book according to the allegory. And let me put that in, because that got to be an allegory. No lamb have 7 horns. No lamb have 7 eyes. And that is why they said the lion is coming, but the lamb appear. It's deep, but I'm going to leave it at that. You know why? Because I'm not giving you my opinion. I'm just putting for the thinkers. This is how the philosophers philosophize. They look at the different angles of this reality so that they can dissect it properly, so everyone can see how you can come to a proper conclusion. But anyway, I think that's good. I have my chalice here. Rabbi RasIadonis.
Wow. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Wow. What a great perspective. The man Aya, the eye really, wow, you talk about covering many of the details and looking at the details, even looking at the chapter before the chapter you're in, chapter 4 and the context of it. It's very interesting because when you presented, the presentation to I said, this is a really good subject matter right here. And it's a subject matter that a few of us have already been kind of reasoning or discussing on, but how you connected the details and went into the details of that. Like you said, Western Gentile Christianity or Eurocentric, nowadays Christianity tends to have a very narrow kind of view of things. And often people will say something, but not really go study. As the Bible says, to study to shew yourself approved. And I can hear and tell, and hopefully the audience and those hearing, how the man really covered the basic points. That first part, I got to go and listen to it again. Priest, no, for real. I got to go listen to that part again because it's what it says, water reflect water. Light to light. It reminds me of the sort of study that I have already gone into just to prepare. Just another level, going over different things and recognizing there's a bigger back drop to this. There's a fuller context to it. It's easy just to look at the verse there and to point out, well, boom, Haile Selassie. Well, yeah, but even Haile Selassie, Kadamawi Haile Selassie, our Godfather and King of Kings of Ethiopia, would even point out, like, for my part, I glory in the Bible. I know there was a discussion concerning the Bible, but our view is, when I say His Majesty's view, or is taking cue from His Majesty's view, because our name as Rastafari is His Majesty's name. So we're of His namesake. So it behooves us to put these things into better context. Look at the Ethiopian official called the eunuch. He was on his way, but he went to Jerusalem to worship. People forget that part, right? He went to Jerusalem to worship. So who usually goes to Jerusalem to worship? Somebody who is called either an Israelite or a Yehudi, as they call today, like a Jew. So he went to Ethiopia to worship. Then on his way back, in his ride, in his chariot, his ancient SUV, he is reading a scroll. So, it's like going to Ethiopia, or you go a place and you pick up a book. You know what I mean? Because remember what the feasts and the festivals for ancient Israel was. It was a time, usually the feasts and the festivals, the 3 times in the year, where the mandam had to appear. The woman, it was not as obligatory upon the woman, because the law says 3 times in the year shall all the men of Israel appear. You look in His Majesty's autobiography, you'll see where he speaks about ones and ones keeping the Sabbath. And if they didn't keep the Sabbath, they would be punished. And he speaks about 3 annual feasts. So we already can see there's a connection with the biblical, the Hebrew, the core belief of this people. And this is the beautiful thing we have concerning Ethiopia. Now, I look at Ethiopia just briefly before touching down on the line of Judah point. It's something I was thinking about. Let me share this right here. We've been receiving the crumbs off of the foreign master's table. The crumbs, right? What we need to do now is to make bread. What we need to do now is to farm the land. We need to put the seed in. We need to grow it. We need to break it down. Making bread is an amazing thing. We can go to the store and flour, so from some. But when you think about making bread as a community effort, making bread as a community effort, and I give thanks to I brother for, coming forward with that process of going through the scripture and say, okay, Revelation 5:5, we can't take this verse in isolation. So firstly, foremostly, in this time of revelation, Haile Selassie the First, King of Kings of Ethiopia, elect of God. I'm going to speak of the seal. When I say the seal is the names that His Majesty, the names and titles His Majesty has accepted in His anointing and coronation and utilized. Because I want to have a reason about Lord of Lords, because Lord of Lords is not a title that His Imperial Majesty ever accepted, or coronated or crowned with. That goes to your point. And man, when you said that right there about the Lamb standing in the midst, if I'm correct, it says the Lamb was standing in the midst of the throne. And as my brother said, no lamb has 7 horns and this many eyes and this and that. It must be allegorical, right? So therefore, if that part is allegorical, like for Christ justice. When I say Christ, there's a couple of points I want to lay down first, right? And kind of level the ground. When we say Christ, we often think of course, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ. And that's not wrong if one is in the New Testament area and reading that part there. But even as the same Jesus Christ said to the Samaritan woman, right? Ye worship that which ye know not. We know what we worship, for salvations of the Jews. That's a powerful verse right there, because it seemed as though the Christ, Jesus, had a problem with some of the Jews, especially with the religious leaders. The religious leaders seem to have had the people caught up on some things, and Christ was trying to take them back to what the original foundation was. So we have to look at the Bible through a Judaic or Hebraic perspective. So when he said of the Jews, of the Judeans, of the Judahites, of Judah, if we look at the Bible through a Hebraic perspective, we'll see that truly, according to what is written, as it is written, Yeshua is the Messiah, or Jesus is the Christos. But here's my question. What Christos? What Messiah? I don't know if you heard this reasonment, but some of the Chabarim, the brothers and Talmudim disciples, fellow disciples know this, that the first Messiah in the Bible, according to the Bible, we're looking in the context of the Bible, according to teaching of the king. For my part, I glory to the glory in the Bible, and Ethiopians as a church and as Jews or those of the Judaic faith. One thing I admire about them, they are very studied. You know, they study. You know what I mean? They write. They articulate certain things that we can look back over a historical period of time. But who was the first Christ or Messiah in the Bible? Am I confusing people? Because people, when I say Christ, some people like to say Christ, some people like to say Messiah. John's gospel says, we have found the Messiahs. Messiahs. Oh, that's the Greek way of saying Messiah. We found the Messiahs, which is being interpreted Christ. Basically, what they were saying, we have found the anointed in the Hebrew language, which is being interpreted in the Greek language, the anointed. You know, if I say, bro, I found the Yetek Ebawin, Yetek Ebal, you'd be like, Yetek Ebal. What's Yetek Ebal? What's Yetek Ebal? Yetek Ebal is an Amharic way of saying Messiah, right? Or anointed one, or the painted one. You know, because when you anoint something, it's like when you paint, you know? So that made me start to think like, well, this anointed one also is one who will be painted or described even in artistic or visual ways. Thus the illuminated manuscripts, thus the Russian Orthodox paintings and other paintings, so forth and so on. But I don't want to lose track here. Messiah, the first Messiah in the Bible was Aaron. Aaron was the first Messiah according to the Hebrew text, right? He was the first Messiah. Now, Melchizedek is the first priest that we have in the Bible, Melchizedek. But here's what we don't know about Melchizedek. We don't know much about Melchizedek based on the Bible. All we know that he was a priest. So Melchizedek is the first priest that we have, and no doubt he was anointed. But we don't have any further information. Does not say in the text in Amharic and in Ethiopic or in the Hebrew, we don't say he was anointed. But when we come to Aaron, it says that Aaron, being the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, also is the one anointed. His sons, only his sons, the sons of Aaron, would be anointed ones and also priests. So to be a priest, you had to be anointed. To be anointed, you had to be a priest. This is what the Hebrew scriptures and the Torah brings out. This is what the backdrop of Yeshua, the backdrop of Jesus, the backdrop of Jesus Christ and what he fulfilled or was alleged and believed to fulfill must be based on this. All right. And I do think that he has fulfilled much, and the main things had to be fulfilled. You understand? In order for Haile Selassie, right, to appear, in order for him to appear. Everything is about a kind of a chain of revelation. So Aaron is the first Christ in the Bible. Am I offending anyone? People say, no, Jesus is the Christ. Jesus, one brother said to me, and I love you, bro. Hail up, brother. I'll let you come forward and have some reasonings. But he was saying, but it says the Christ, the Christ. Listen, Aaron was the Messiah. He was the Messiah. His sons was the Messiah. In other words, all of the priests of Israel had to be of Levi, but not all of the Levites were priests. Once again, all of the priests of Israel had to be Levites of the tribe of Levi, but not all of the tribe of Levi served as priests. The only ones in Israel that was anointed according to the biblical narrative, right, the Torah and the 5 books, the only one that was anointed was, right, Aaron and his sons. Isn't it interesting when we read the Bible of the tribe? Right. Isn't it interesting when we read the Bible in the New Testament? Christ is Messiah. Question, which Messiah? Am I losing anybody just yet? Which Messiah? See, the Gentiles, from a Gentile perspective of the Bible, what I call Gentile Christianity, in many ways counterfeit Christianity, it's like they just basically white out and block out all the rest of the book and just put this periscope around Jesus. But then Jesus is here, according to his own words, to bear witness to the truth. So how can you block out the truth and bear witness to the truth? That's why the Antichrist is not some futuristic thing. The Antichrist has been going on since then. People are looking for one Antichrist. Antichrist is not a person, it's a position. It's a role, it's a position. The point is that many Christians are anti-Christ because they don't understand Christ in its proper context. And therefore they call Christ king when Christ is Lord. He is the son of the king. They call Christ Messiah as king, but the Bible, the New Testament clearly says that Jesus Christ is Messiah, high priest. Oh, wait, hold on for a moment. He now fulfills, Aaron is the old thing, Aaron and sons is the old thing. Christ is the high priest of our profession, and his sons, right? Speaking of the Christians, the brethren, we are the priests. Even Revelation says he has made us priests and kings to his God and his Father, our God and our Father. My point is, you cannot have a king Messiah who is anointed until you have a priest who is anointed. In other words, you look at the Bible, first was Aaron as the Messiah. His sons was the Messiahs. So wait, if Christ means Messiah, and if Christians mean those who are Messiahs, according to the Bible, the first Christ, according to the Bible, Old Testament, Messiah was Aaron and his sons. And the first Christians was, and that is what the New Testament clearly testifies. Look at the book of Hebrews, the epistle to the Hebrews. Christ is the high priest. He is both the high priest, and according to the theology and the receiving of the word, he is the sacrifice. He is the offerer, and he is that which is offered, according to the New Testament. And those who believe in him have become a royal priesthood, right? A royal priesthood. So my point right there is that I think most Christians are off because they have added in other ideas to the conception of Jesus Christ, Jesus Christos, Yeshua HaMashiach, that is not there in the Bible. And who am I to believe? Who am I to believe? Somebody who was born around my time or a little before my time who wasn't there and say they believe in this one and they're looking at the Bible, right? And then when I look at the Bible, I see, well, there's something contradictory to what they're telling me. So that's my first point just on entering into this discussion of messiahship. Why is Haile Selassie Messiah? Some people say Haile Selassie ain't no Messiah. Wait. Was he not anointed and coronated? They didn't just put a crown on his head, and spray something. No, he was anointed according to those same precepts, right, as ancient Israel, because of the further history of Ethiopia and the Israelites, which is a true history that the Western world and many antichrists want to deny. I say the antichrists are the ones who try to deny Ethiopia's testimony to this Judeo-Hebrew Queen of Sheba, King Solomon's antichrist, because when you put that into the proper context, right, you get to recognize why the coronation of Haile Selassie was like a coronation of Solomon or David, because it was based on those same principles and precepts. He wasn't just crowned. I think what we as Rastafari need to focus on is that he was anointed and crowned. Yes, the queen, she was crowned, but she was not anointed. I point that out because it points out the singularness, right, of Haile Selassie, right, being a Messiah, and in our times being that Messiah, the Messiah, or as many of us, have said, Christ in his kingly character. Why do we say Christ in his kingly character? Why is that? Because what is clearly manifest in the New Testament is Christ as that Lamb of God, right? And as that priest, even that high priest. You see what I'm saying? So what the New Testament brings to light is Messiah, high priest, new priesthood, you could say new covenant, right? Perfect sacrifice, right? No more need for debtors and animal offerings, a more spiritual view. In other words, instead of offering the animals, we offer ourselves. You know what I mean? In other words, a maturity, a growth of the spirituality, right? for more things to come. And that was for the revelation of the Lion of the tribe of Judah, Haile Selassie I. Well, where's Jesus Christ in the picture? Let's go to the word right here. I'm gonna land right here. Cause bro, when you came forward with that honorable priest, man, I gotta listen to that part again. And when you hit on Daniel, I said, the brother is doing the due diligence. I want ones to listen to that. That's the due diligence you have to go through, because how the Hebrews and the people way before us who looked at this book, they were building on, how can I say, line upon line and precept upon precept. Here a little, there a little. We have to go to Revelation a little. We go to Daniel a little. It wasn't just zooming in to one area and making up things. It was understanding the consistency of prophecy and the kind of culminative effect of it. Let's look right here in Revelation 5:5. So when it says right here in Revelation 5:5, it says, I use a Schofield Study Bible, as an English point of reference. I think the notes are very right on. Have thought so over the years, have tested them. There's a few areas that I disagree with the Schofield Study Bible, but compared to the majority of areas where we have shown and proven it's right and accurate, I would recommend it as a point of study. It says Christ and his kingly character. It says, opens the book, Revelation 5:5. And one of the elders saith to, not unto, but to me, weep not, behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, hath prevailed, as the brother pointed out, already prevailed, already won something, already did something, already conquered something, to open the book. To do what? To open the book and to loose the seven seals thereof. The next verse that's connected with it, verse 6. And, right, so one of the elders is the brother, as Honorable Priest Isaac said, Kahin Yitzhak, right? And he said, he heard one of the elders speaking. You don't say, I saw this. Notice where we have in Revelation, like he saw things, but here he heard one of the elders say to him. And then after that was said to him, he turned around and beheld and looked, or lo, in the midst of the throne, what the brother did. And this is one of the things I was going to go to, but you already brought it out and made the honorable, Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church priest also take note of it, so we can even have this academic discussion on a higher level with this already out there. But if it was more on a level of a reasoning, intellectually, kind of like a proper debate, this is one of the areas I would have gone to. But when I heard you went there, I was like, it's fact. People don't look at the chapter before, because in the chapter before, we already have someone on the throne, right? And those colors there, the colors of the gems from my studies, they do match the red, gold, and green. There's an ancient legend in the Testament of Solomon that when the Queen of Sheba came to see Solomon's finished building, she saw some of the building, and she saw above like a doorway, there was these gems. And the gems remind me of these gems here, because if you translate the colors, it would be like with emerald green, like green, yellow, and red. And then it says the one who sits on the throne has this jasper-like complexion. There's a picture, I'll share it with you, but when you see this painting of His Majesty, right, and even pictures of that, you can see the same jasper-like complexion. Just to point that out, because this is all part of John's vision, what he saw in the vision. But here where it says, in the midst of the throne, are we speaking allegorically here? Allegorically, in a sense, in the midst of the throne. Look, I'm sitting on this chair, right? And here is the throne.
Exactly.
Throne chair, but it's in context. So I'm sitting in the throne. In the midst, where's the midst? The middle. Where's the middle of the man? The middle of the man is his heart, right?
Sure.
The legs are like extremities, but the middle of the man is the heart, right? We have the three above, the three below, right? We have the heart, right? The center of the seven. Three above, the heavens, three below, the earth. But the heart. So in the midst of the throne. So that means if there's a man sitting on the throne, not an empty throne here, right? But if there's a man sitting on the throne, right? Or if there's one likened to a man, right? Like it says in, was it Daniel? It's not Daniel. It's is it Ezekiel or is it Isaiah? I think it's Isaiah, where it said that there was like from the upward part you saw a man, but it was like flames. There's one of the areas that was flames, like the fireman. There was like a fireman on the throne. But in the midst of the throne is the heart. So
Deep,
it's saying in the midst of the throne and of the four beasts. Now, if we want to get into possible ways that the allegory or the symbology or the metaphor or the dark sayings can be interpreted, doesn't the heart have four chambers? All right, just to point that out, even though ones will say, well, that is actually speaking of, either the four evangelists or the four beast systems, depends on how they interpret it. And in the midst of the elders, so there are elders there, and stood a lamb as it had been slain. So now we know that the lamb is not to be slain, but the lamb, something that's already happened. The lamb was already slain. And that this lamb stood in the middle of the midst of the throne. And we know there's a man, there's someone who is sitting on the throne, right? So we interpret this as in the heart of that man, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God, right? Or Exyaviher in the Amharic, Yahweh in the Hebrew, Exyaviher. Remember, Haile Selassie's anointed and crowned title, one of his anointed and crowned nomens, praenomen, which we call a nomen or praenomen. Like in ancient Egypt, they would have the different names. They had the different names. You know what I mean? Like the 2 ladies' names and everything. But we have elect of God, Siyuma Exyavia. I know we like to say elect of himself, in our, I would say, holy zeal, right? But let's first go to the plain witness. His Majesty's title is elect of God. Right? Here is speaking about 7 horns, 7 eyes, and 7 spirits of Exyavia sent forth into all the earth, right? And he came and took the book out of the right hand of him that sat on the throne. As the brother mentioned, there's something very cryptic about this, right? But in deciphering the criticism of it, did we know that when His Majesty was coronated, anointed, and coronated and crowned, I went over it after you proposed it to me. I went over the Sarata Nigis, which is the coronation, the Kedase, the coronation, the liturgy of the coronation. I went through it and I said, let me find every place where Jesus Christ is mentioned in the coronation. And what is the relationship on that day when that day in the acceptable year of the Lord, when His Majesty was anointed and crowned? How many times, what's the relationship of Jesus Christ? And I think that is going to be the most telling, bringing that out. There's one area of the coronation where it speaks about, may our King, Haile Selassie, receive like the 7-fold spirits. I mean, the 7-fold, the spirit that's 7-fold, the spirit of wisdom, spirit of judgment, of zeal, the 7-fold spirit right there. And reading this just here and hearing you in the opening, hearing the eye in the opening, it shows me that our view that Haile Selassie in this dispensation of revelation is this one. And people say, well, what about Jesus Christ? Did you not read, and in the midst of the throne? And all I need to do, or any of us, is to go to His Majesty Haile Selassie's own witness. In fact, you'll find that Haile Selassie speaks of God in the general sense, but in the more specific relational sense, he speaks of Jesus Christ. In fact, in the autobiography, let me share this with the item. I don't know if we touched on this before. Let me see if we have this here. It's the autobiography of His Imperial Majesty. And in the autobiography of His Majesty, in the opening part, if I can't find it to read it, I'll bring it into the discussion as we move forward. In the preface, the Mekadem, the intro, he makes a prayer. He's praying. People used to ask, well, if Haile Selassie is God, people say, well, who did he pray to? Well, I don't know if that was to be a funny question, a sarcastic question, a slick question, but to me, it's a good question. It's a good question. Who did he pray to? Right? Some might say, well, he prayed to himself. In fact, I was reading in the ancient Judaic, I got it right here, in the ancient Judaic Midrash, where they're reasoning on the Psalms, and they saying that God, right, that God, in a sense, prays. If one may dare speak this way, that even God prays. And they went on to say that God prays that he would not, destroy this people who he has chosen. I thought that was interesting. I thought it was interesting because even in the ancient, and this is not saying the white Jews, people say, oh, these were the white Jews. No, the white Jews just got the crumbs that had fallen off our table when we got kicked out the room. In other words, they've added things to it, but a lot of what they've gotten at the core is ours. But be that as it may, here's the preface. The preface where he begins off a house built on granite and strong foundations. That sounds similar, doesn't it? Doesn't that sound similar? Oh, that's what Jesus Christ said. And then Jesus Christ says that you will see me, but not see me. Wait. How in the world am I going to see somebody and not see somebody? You will see me and not see me. And then as you read on it from John 14, John 15 and 16, you will see that what he's saying is that another one is going to come. And he starts to speak about the Father, and this one will take of his things and will present his things to you and will not speak of himself. The most amazing thing about Haile Selassie I, really, is yes, he has this anointing, this high calling, and these titles, so forth and so on, yes. But the man himself speaks very little of himself. He speaks of this duty. He's serving Ethiopia as a father serves his son. Wait, hold on for a moment. Do you hear what his master says? He seeks to serve Ethiopia as a father serves his son. Doesn't the son usually serve the father? See, it's the same crypticness that goes against what we ordinarily would expect, that we find only reminiscent of Jesus Christ. So even Jesus Christ says that you will see me and not see me, right? Because those of us who have eyes to see have been able to receive him. In fact, there's an area in scripts in John's Gospel, chapter 14. I'm just going to run for a little moment right here. In John chapter 14, where he says this part right here, because this is all part of what Christ says and how his majesty speaks of Jesus Christ, but then Jesus Christ speaks of another, but then he says that other is basically me and me is he. Here in John chapter 14, at verse 22, it says Judas. Everybody's fire burning, and there's a lot of fire sparked up. Judas, let me say it one more time. Judas saith to him, not Iscariot. See, when we burn up Judas. Wait, stop. It's speaking like a Gentile. Burn up Iscariot. I notice the Ethiopians, when they refer to Judas Iscariot, they don't really refer to him so much as Judas in many of their writings, but more by his surname Iscariot. And then I read in John chapter 14 at verse 22, Judas saith to him, and here in the Bible it says, comma, not Iscariot. Isn't that interesting? Because we always
think... quickly, I don't want to stop you, but since you're here, you ever link that with the Iscari?
Oh, Sakari? The Sakari?
It's this guy that fight against the king and the Dubats them.
Sakari.
The name sounds similar.
In English, it does, because Iscariot is from the Hebrew Ish-Kariot. 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 Ish means a man, and Kariot means a city. Kariya is a city. Kariot is cities. So his name in the Hebrew would mean man of the cities. He was a city man, or man of the city. That was his surname. But in the English, Iscariot does sound like another Greek word, Sakari. So I get you there. But etymologically, they're not from the same root, but in our language today, yes, there's a similarity.
But just found it mistake because, just for those who may not know, so where they were the Somalia, where were the Dubats from?
The who?
The Dubats, those that joined Italy to fight against the king. The Dubats and the...
Bro. You know how I was saying? When you said Sakari, like there's an Israelite named Sakari and a little camp.
No, is that Iskari?
Sakari means like dagger. Sakari were like the...
Right. Okay, like dagger man. All right.
Ashkari, the Ashkari. Yeah,
Right.
Askari. They say Askari. Yeah, Askari.
Askari. Okay.
Askari.
Yeah.
The Askari. Okay, yeah. That's interesting.
And
No,
they're the Somalia, they're from where?
they are from, some were from Somali,
Hmm.
some they even say were from Eritrea. And remember, they had them even Leopold. Leopold even had these same guys. You talking about the ones the Fezes?
Pheasant, right. And was it, and I don't want to come off your point, and was, because I remember you were, I could put it back, but, and what's the, and the Dubats, where they from? Uh,
I have to look up the Dubats. I heard the name before, but right now in
yeah.
my quick recall, I can't recall exactly. I don't
But
want to.
just for the family to you know, these were the ones that somewhat, you know, they were black people. If you look at them and you look at the Ethiopians, they look the same, the Somalians and the Ethiopians, but yet still decided. So when you watch the war videos of the Italians fighting the Ethiopians and you see black people firing shot at black people, it's the Ashkaris fighting against the Ethiopians. So I always thought Judas Iscari, you know,
No, it's
you know how the prophecy tends to
no,
find itself in history. Because those are our brothers, you know. It's not as if they are
oh,
different people.
bro,
Joe.
thank God. Check it. Man of the cities. Ish, because Ish is a way of saying man. Ish Kariot, man of the cities, right? A city man. I always thought like a city man. It's saying something like Revelation says, come out the cities. Babylon is the city. But let's go back to Rome, because they were along Mussolini's side, but basically they were fighting for Rome, for Victor Emmanuel and the Pope, who was trying to get his thing going on, his Antichrist program up and running again. But Rome is a city. Remember, they call Rome is that eternal city.
Yes.
And these guys are fighting with the Roman general Mussolini against the King of Kings. So there is a mystic connection with the Askari and Ishkar. Yeah. I was thinking of Saqqara, the Saqqara. But your point, that there is a mystic connection. We got
those little mystics that come back to show well we're really dealing with the divine Christ figure. But you were talking of Judas now, not Ascari.
not Iscariot.
Iscariot.
It's Kariah. It's Kariah. Maybe we have to change up the name. It's Kariah. And so there's another Judas. This Judas is the one who wrote the book of Jude. See how they play around with it? They say Jude is really Judas, because Judas is the Greek way of saying Yehuda.
Judah.
So Judas said to him, not Iscariot, Lord, how is it that thou wilt manifest thyself to us and not to the world? Because Christ is speaking to them in John chapter 14. And when we come down to verse 22, Judah, the one who wrote the book of Jude, not the traitor or not the betrayer, asks, well, Lord, how is it that you will manifest yourself to us and not to the world? I say this is a perfect Rastafari point for the called, chosen, and faithful Rastafari. How is it that Rastafari, especially the first proclaimers, even before I saw this biblical Christ revelation connection, and other people didn't see it? And many of those men there, the first men wasn't locksmen and they wasn't beardsmen. They were combsome, right? They call them bald head, but really let's call them combsome, right? I mean, they didn't have even beards, but they were making these connections, and many other people in their family wasn't seeing it. So even here we have the mystic being revealed in the New Testament of the Bible. He asks, well, how will you reveal yourself, manifest yourself to us and not to the world? So when the world be asking us, why you say this about Haile Selassie, why that, why that, why that? It don't matter if they're Christian or they're not, they just can't see it. Because what does Christ say? Just as Yeshua answered, Jesus answered and said to him, if a man love me, he will keep my words. Wow. People say they love Jesus, right? Well, tell me something Jesus said. No. I mean, tell me something Jesus said. Jesus loved me. This I know from the Bible. Tell me so. Chapter and verse. You see what I'm saying? A lot of times people that we don't remember, even Christians out there that might not agree with Inas Rastafari, but how much words of Jesus do you remember? You know what I mean? I mean, you have to think about that, because Christ said, if a man love me, if a man, he's given a qualification for those who say they love Jesus, right? If a man love me, he will keep my words. He didn't say he'll keep Paul's words. He didn't say he'll keep Moses' words, David's words, right? But Christ's words, right? And my Father will love him, and we will come to him. This is an amazing verse. He's basically saying, if a man love me, I'm not going to respond to that. Let the man love me, but here's the qualification. Does he keep my words? Now, if he loved me and say he loved me and keep my words, guess what? The Father will love you. So even Christ is saying, Justice is saying, he's waiting for the Father's, he's responding with the Father. One can say they love him, but they don't keep his word. Well, he talked about that in the next verse. But if they do keep his word, it says the Father, he says, my Father, Abi will love him. No pun intended. Abi will love him, and we will come to him. And what? God is one, right? But he's saying we. Jesus is saying we will come to him, or maybe into him, and make our abode with him. This is Tawahido. I submit to you, to the audience, to even the Ethiopian Orthodox, the priests or others, that from a biblical perspective, this is where the teaching we call Tawahido, right, is connected with the biblical narrative, which was before the theological reasonings were articulated. Right here, that if a man love him, keep his words. Father will love him, right? And we will come to him and make our abode with him. That is the root of the Tawahido idea, that because of Jesus Christ, the relationship with the divine, right, is restored. It's like the first Adam. You mentioned the first Adam.
And the second?
The second Adam, actually. I have to say this. I was saying that for a while, and then the Spirit said, check it out. I went and looked, and it's actually the last Adam. I think it's an interesting concept. The first Adam and the last Adam. You know what I mean? Instead of the second Adam. You know what I mean? Okay. So
let me engage you just a moment there. So Jesus Christus, who is that? That's the last Adam? The person that they call the second Adam. You know, they say Jesus is the second Adam. So I'm asking you, Jesus Christus.
Oh, yeah, Christians say Jesus is the second Adam. Christians say a lot of things. You know what I mean?
So I'm asking now, so the Jesus Christus, the Jesus Christ, is he a Adam? Or is he because you made a mention on a program we did before, a very key point, that the King of Kings named the town Adama. He changed the name Adama, which according to them was named from Adam, to Nazareth, which is reality. So we see him, I don't want to
okay.
Not to play with the words, but you see him playing around with the name Adama. So who is the last Adam then? Let me just ask you that. So who is the last Adam from your perspective? Okay, if you notice, just give me a second. If you notice,
I got you.
These titles here is not. This is university levels now. No disrespect to no one, but somebody in kindergarten might be saying, might be even emotional because of the discussion. That's why every now and again you have to stop and say, hey, listen, take your time, listen to me properly, etc. Now, because we reached to a point now that we want to be specific with these identities that we're giving out. We have a heap of medals up on the table here now. We have King of Kings, we have Lord of Lords. Here what you said there now. No? I showed the whole Bingy house stand up when you say Haile Selassie never accepted Lord of Lords. You have King of Kings, you have Lord of Lords.
Lord of Lords is not with him. That does not mean that Lord of Lords. Remember, the Lamb stood in the midst of the throne.
I get that point, good. But I'm just showing you all the titles you have on the table, from Defender, the Faith, Ancient of Days, So, okay, for example, you mentioned anointed then. All right. If you want to say technically, yes. Christ means to be anointed. But you know that a believer, a faithful, is going to argue with you and tell you, well, listen, brother, I understand what you're saying, but you cannot give the Christhood to everybody that got a little oil thrown on their head. You understand? Because now they're seeing it as the anointing oil that many people would have received going down the line. Some people we don't even know, is symbolic of a spiritual anointed oil that is supposed to rest on a specific person. Whether you put the oil on his head or not, he is the anointed Christ. Okay, let me ask then. Enoch, where would you place Enoch? Because you said Aaron is the first Christ because of the anointed. I
No,
understand that.
Because not to cut you, but as his
Go through. I know you know where I'm going, so I don't even have to cut
I have
you.
to find a speech. No, it's a good reason, man. I got to find this word sign that I read years ago, where His Majesty says he was asked about his faith, and he says, according to what is written, you know, he couched it as it is written. This I believe. Boom. And I got a revelation from that, personal revelation. You know, so I focus on what is written in a sense, because that's how this whole thing comes down to us. You see what I'm saying? It wasn't always just so high metaphysical and spiritual, but it's a growing process in understanding. You know, just as we use words symbolically, but the fact of Aaron being the first high priest in that sense is in the Israelite context, because Jesus, Yeshua, and his fellow Israelites before and Judahites before don't really care how other people look at things. This is one of the things that we think. We think the Israelites were going around kind of like picking up a little here and there. No, it was a very kind of this is our thing, and we are interpreting it in our context. It might reflect other things that other people believe, like it says in the New Testament, if other people keep what the Torah says, even though like the Greeks or the Romans, if they do something that Torah says is righteous, they become a Torah to themselves. It's good for them. But we have come into this covenant. So when speaking about Aaron being the anointed, it's because the text says so. And this is the context of what the New Testament is saying of Jesus. There's a whole book that is to explain how Jesus is the new Aaron. And he's our high priest. This is what the people believe, not the stuff that people will be talking about in the mega churches and nonsense today. That's the true faith, right? Now, as far as Enoch, what do you mean? Whether Enoch was anointed physically?
No, why I brought in Enoch. No, you know Enoch is an outstanding figure.
No.
He's considered to be the first. He's referred to as the first Christ and the first Son of God. And of course, again, we're getting, to use the term in a good way, we're getting very technical with our term. So I just want to know if the Christ title is a title he should hold, but I think you explained yourself. I think you said in an Israel framework.
Yeah, in an Israelite, because in order for Christ
Israelite framework. So I think you really answered that. Because Enoch, for those who may not know, is considered to be I don't know if, let me ask you, is he anointed? Enoch in a different way. He obviously is anointed, spiritually.
Probably in a different way, but it's not relative to the scope of what regardless of the goalposts. If Christ is to fulfill something, right? If Christ, according to what we're taught and what ones before us have believed, if he's to fulfill something, we got to find out what is that something. Enoch already was blessed and chosen. He walked with God. You know what I mean? He was not a part of the wickedness of his generation. He was there, you know, you could say reproving the angels, calling them out on things. He got a ringside seat to enough things. Was he an anointed person? In a kind of a spiritual sense that, yes, the Spirit of God was with him, you know, but this is before there was any Israelite. This is before there was any Hebrew. This is before there was any Abraham in that sense. So Enoch is almost like forever blessed. He's outside the paradigm of we could say the Abraham to Jesus fulfillment back to the original perfect covenant sort of thing. So
let me ask. I want to ask again. Is this similar to, because you mentioned about the priest and the king? So is this similar to Brother RasIadonis brought a conversation to the forefront when he spoke of the concept of the king being God? That's one of the times we were discussing it. Haile Selassie is God, and he said that the concept of the king being God is something that we see in the ancient world, going back to the Nile Valley civilization, where all the kings were crowned as Amun-Ra or Heru. You know the history.
Yeah.
So is it the same way you're speaking of? I mean, just being the priest or the high priest, I should say specifically, is the natural title of Christ. Like being the king is the natural, like Israel king is Israel God.
Yes, in the sense of, okay, in the sense of the king, according to the Bible and the Torah, looking at the Hebrew, the king, when it says the king of Israel is higher than all the kings of the world. In the Hebrew, that is Elyon. Elyon. That means most high. So the king of Israel is most high, according to scripture. Israel keeping the covenant and doing the right thing, Israel is the Elyon, the most high of all other nations. So it's the most high. So we see the term most high being attributed to our king and to the king of Israel. So Israel's king is Israel's God in the sense of this. And I think I mentioned this before. The word for worship in the Hebrew and Amharic is the same word for bow. Like to fly to my bow.
When I get a chance, I want to come in again, but please go ahead. But when you give me a chance, I want to come and home in into some points. I think you have some points going there. I don't want to let go.
Yeah. I'm a rock.
Yeah. Oh my, look like you were frozen a bit. All right, family, give thanks continually. RasIadonis with us. It looks like he might be a bit frozen there. Let me just see if he can maybe go out and come back in, go out and come back in. Let me see if I can assist him with that. In the meantime, just take a look.
Yes. And what happened there? Am I still on?
Saturday, the 25th of May. 2 faiths, 2 different perspectives. 1 origin, Ethiopia. RasIadonis, Rabbi, Lion of Judah Society, the faithful of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. A scholarly discourse on the subject. Who is the Lion of Judah of Revelation chapter 5? Get your tickets today. Yes, my brother, give thanks. Give thanks you're here again with us. Yeah, just took the opportunity to remind the people of the 25th of May. And what we're doing here, is this is a beautiful discussion, man. I think I'm just in a place. That's all. My brother, you want to continue what you're saying?
No, likewise. No, likewise, actually, just a quick point. These are some points we'll follow up, and maybe we try to unpack one at a time. Did the Israelites only worship or were required to worship 3 times in a year? Worship basically means prostration, to bow, to like fall down on our face. We see the Ethiopians do it a lot. That same to bow is translated as to worship. In some places of the Bible, when it's related to God, right, the Lord, it's translated as worship. But this same word, the underlying word in the Hebrew and in the Haile Selassie Amharic Bible and the Ge'ez is the same word to bow. So what's interesting is that the translator says they worshiped over here, but then they walked into the king's court, King David's court, and they bowed to the king. And the same word. So it could be translated as worship. There's a part in Abraham in Genesis. We was going over this in the Torah reading where Sarah dies. Sarah passes away, and he's trying to buy a field. Buy a field and a cave, Machpelah, called Machpelah, right? This cave, right? And he's reasoning with the children of Heth, the Hittites, right? That later on become Turkey, when we look at his history and stuff. But anyway, it says that he bowed to the sons of Heth, to the children, the sons of Heth. But the same word there meant worship. So as I was looking at it, I said, wait, how would the Hebrews have looked at this right here? Because Abraham, in concluding this agreement to buy a cave to bury his wife, himself, and then also the other patriarchs, according to the scripture, he bows to them. Then I read in the part where they would go into the court of David. And when David is on the throne, King David, they would bow to King David on the throne. The same prerogative that they would give to God. One of my brethren said in a reasonment, and he'll up to Brother Obadiah, we was having a reasonment, and he was pointing out that, sometimes when he reasoned for other Rastafari and says that he doesn't worship Haile Selassie. And ones might think like, and when I heard that, I got the point. I don't know if others had got it in the discussion. I got the point. And I said, I agree likewise in the literal sense. I don't worship either. But if we were in the court and the king is on the throne right there, and we walk in as his sons and his servants to the throne, I will bow. Because, in other words, the idea of worship is literally bow. But now we get this idea of worship. We confuse worship with praise. We confuse worship with prayer. We confuse worship with intercession. These are all different words. See, in the West, there's this way of simplifying, dumbing down everything. That's why it's a good point that the I brought forward, concerning, what would Enoch be? When I say that Enoch is not Messiah in the sense that we're speaking here, he is a holy one, a very holy one. It's testified from the Bible and from his own book, the Book of Enoch, the Ethiopic Book of Enoch. But he's outside of that particular paradigm that we're speaking right here. In fact, he's like Elijah, one of two men, according to the Bible, directly, who never
Elijah like him. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, could this be the two witnesses? Many people ask. You know what I mean? But that's a whole other point there. But my point about Messiah is that Aaron was the Christ of the Old Testament. The high priest was the Christ of the Old Testament. How ironic when we get to the New Testament, Hebrews and elsewhere, it seems to be painting the same picture of Christ, but bringing in a new order. There was something that you had said before we had went to the break, because the part I wanted to bring out was how it seems as though His Majesty was praying to not God the Father, but he was praying to Jesus Christ, which brings in a kind of an interesting revelation kind of idea. Because in this right here, he says this, just one quick part. This is the preface to book 1 of the autobiography. Hiweteanaya Ethiopia Rimja, My Life in Ethiopia's Progress. He is going through, this is the one that begins, a house built on granite and strong foundation, not even the onslaught of pouring rain, gushing torrents, and strong winds will be able to pull down. And he speaks about how some people have written the story of my life, representing as truth what in fact derives from error, from ignorance, error, or envy, but they cannot shake the truth from its place, even if they attempt to make others believe it. Then we get further. He says this in the 4th, he makes 4 petitions, 6 petitions here. It's in the 4th petition that he says this. He says, although there is nothing that is not written in the Holy Scriptures, which is an interesting kind of statement. Although there's nothing. Is he speaking about literally or in principle? There is nothing that's not written. You like that one right there?
Yeah, of course.
Although there's nothing that is not written in Holy Scriptures, if you will enable me to write as I have planned. So who is this you His Majesty is giving in this opening prayer in his autobiography in book 1? If you will enable me to write as I have planned, may our kin and our brothers who rise up in the future take note of the word you have spoken. When I read this, and every time I read this, it gives me comfort, bro, because we are his kin. We are his brothers, you know what I mean? And his kin. He says our kin. But who is the you he's speaking to? He says, may they take note of the word that you have spoken. He says, who will rise up in the future. Remember, this was written around 1930s, 36-ish, or almost 40, within that period of time there. He says, the word you have spoken, quote, for without me, you can do nothing. And there's a footnote right here where the footnote is to St. John chapter 15 and 5. So can we safely say that when His Majesty was given this prayer, he is speaking to Jesus Christos? He says, the word that you have spoken, for without me, you can do nothing. And may their hearts be convinced that with your help alone, will they be able to do anything. Now, I point this out because this is the evidence that there's a relationship, right, with Haile Selassie I, the Rastafari, right, and the one the world calls Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ. And I think that needs to be explored a little bit more right there. You know what I mean? Because what's interesting is that Jesus Christ says that the word that he has spoken is not even his word. It's the Father's word. But then he says one will come after him and will take of his things and shew them to you. And you would not have to ask, like you were just asking his name. It's just an interesting kind of connection there. And that is at the heart of seeing that Haile Selassie is the Lion of the tribe of Judah, and that in the midst of the throne is the Lamb, because in the heart of his majesty, in the heart of his works, the testimony of the truth of Haile Selassie, we can clearly see that, So he is the Lion. That's what the Lamb and the Lion lays down together. Notice right there, where the Lamb and the Lion lays down together. That's right there. You know what I mean? So there was something else you said, but I'm gonna give you an opportunity to say you wanted to come in, because within the time we have right here.
Yeah, well, I know your time too. I don't want to. Several things, I have a list of things. I didn't give pen and paper. So
have we touched on one of the 7 yet? Have we? I just want to know.
No, several things. But no, let me yeah. Okay, let me put to you. Let me see. I think the two more important things. One is somewhat of a comment. You could comment on it. But the second point, I want you to look into what I'm saying and see if you could give me an answer. Okay. The first point. All right. So I'm from the perspective that even the concept of Christ, even by the term Christ, comes from the ancient concept of the charis, which really aligns with the concept of Christ that we know, because to be the charis, you are the resurrected one. Now, I will believe the resurrected one and the anointed one may actually go hand in hand. And from there, you could see that whole sense of the charis. That was just a comment. As I said, you could comment on it, but it was not like a question, it's just an observation. But the second part now, which really is related to that and the whole concept of the king being the God and the priest being the Christ again. Because, for example, in the same way we want to home in now, like we specify. So there are many kings of Israel. And although you may say, we highlighted the scripture saying the kings of Israel is above all the kings of the world. But then now we have the Ethiopian kings list. Some ones would argue, because this is our argument, some ones would argue that, hey, that is the kings of Israel. And of course, there are those that are going to say, no, man, that's not what history says. That's the Ethiopian kings. Okay, fair enough. But now, amongst the Ethiopian kings, let us just deal with those in the latter time. The Haile Selassie, the Menelik II, the Johannes, etc., etc. Now, let's take Menelik II. Menelik the Great. I always used to say, when I study Menelik properly, I created like a saying in myself. I would say, boy, if Haile Selassie didn't come on the scene, I'd say, boys, Menelik II is this man, this is the just because, I mean, that is why one would have a tug of war. Not maybe in Rastafari, because the fact that you're a Rastafari, you're going to put Adamawa on the top of the hill. But outside, if a person who is not bound, I'm going to use that term, you may shake some people, by a belief or concept, and they're going to rationally look at Menelik II and Haile Selassie, you don't be surprised if they say, well, you okay now, but you see Menelik, that's my boy. Because when the Italians come in 18, whenever it was 96, Menelik beat them off in one day. And Menelik is the epitome of the warrior that never came off of the battlefield. A person might, use their own understanding and say, well, Haile Selassie did win the war, but he didn't have to leave, The emperor never leave the battlefield and all these different things. And I can tell you, right, if it's one thing I know, with all respect to Menelik II, and anybody else. Hey, listen, there's not another human being that could have won that war that Haile Selassie had to fight with Mussolini. No offense to Menelik II. All praises. I would bow down before Menelik II, Rasmus Kennedy. Hey, even Marcus Garvey said that the King of Kings shouldn't have gone, you know what I mean, in his own personal meditation, the King of Kings shouldn't have made that move. Now, I'm just saying that Haile Selassie I, in not just to make the decision, you know, but then to withstand the period of weight, because, you know, weight is a heavy load.
Oh,
I don't think ones understand the autobiography that you talk about. Ones need to read them books there properly. And then you would see that I cannot vision another human being in history that would have the ability to be shrewd enough, wise enough, and still have the patience that Haile Selassie. He was made for the moment. I'm telling you. That is why I can see. You see that concept of God coming now. This is why I have to ask. Menelik II, the Great. Again, if the emperor that we know, who I call Emperor Haile Selassie, was absent, maybe I would scratch my head and say, boy, this Menelik man, look.
No, I get
fulfillment, you know. So, but the king, Haile Selassie, you have to call him by name, because when I refer to him, I don't say the emperor, but I have a heap of emperors. I'm going to say the King of Kings, but I have other King of Kings, so I have to even check my own words, because it's just natural for me to say, yeah, the emperor, but it's Haile Selassie I'm speaking of. So I'm saying now, so Menelik II, anointed, and coronated, crowned, and represents, he sits in the seat of the God. Let's put it that way. Just like those before him. Just like the emperor. But isn't there a distinction that because we're looking for the Lion of Judah now, Menelik II is the Lion of Judah, and so is Haile Selassie. But I know that even from your perspective, there got to be something that say, hey, out of all these Lion of Judahs, you know, this one here is not the Lion of Judah, as we say in our vernacular. The Lion of Judah. Yeah, that the scriptures speak about. So what is it? What is it that will make the individual stand out from the cultural tradition that says you're anointed, you're the Christ. You're crowned, you're the God. And I have man that crown that this the program, you know.
Yeah.
All right. Just asking, you know.
It's a very good point you made right there, and this is why I love you, man. We hope we can.
And you know we love Menelik the Great, eh?
No, because
the killer.
Well, I'm listening.
I don't think Menelik could have defeated Mussolini. That's why remember I hail Marcus Garvey as God, you know, nothing take away. No. I'm not doing no spooky thing. I have good understanding. You know. I'm telling you, Marcus Garvey say he disagreed with the move that the emperor makes. So my conclusion is there is no human being that could have won that war and saved the planet. Man, the emperor have to be in a pedestal by himself.
No, I definitely agree. In reality, with people reading the Bible and getting psycho-spiritual benefit, that's great. But don't forget history. What the mind is, history is so very important. A lot of people read Bible and try to talk about prophecy, and they don't know no history, recent history or past history. And what you're mentioning and listening to my brother's perspective, I agree that Menelik is a great one. And yes, he is anointed. He's coronated. To your point about the Israelites, the Israel. Yes, there's been a lot of kings of Israel. I forget the exact number. I had the exact number, but not many of them were good. You know what I'm saying? There was only a few ones that were really good kings. It's like a hand, and there was one queen. There was a bunch of kings of Israel and Judah, but not many of them were good. Only very few of them were good. Like only a handful were good kings. So we have to point that out. So the king of Israel is higher than all the kings of the earth, is Elyon, or Most High, according to the Hebrew Bible. However, that's all conditioned on righteousness. Let's put it like that. Right doing. You know what I mean? So just because somebody's king and got some oil thrown on them, that means nothing. I agree with you. There's a symbolic aspect of the gesture. And even if His Majesty Haile Selassie was anointed, we can see the fruit. It manifests to us, the fruit of the works. Like what you said about who could wait, who could endure, who could fight it on a political level, a spiritual level, all the different levels that warfare was going on and still prevail. I would say this. You remember how we say His Majesty from a biblically influenced perspective? We say he is greater, David, greater son. We often say, or you've heard it said, he's greater David, greater son. Did you know that David had to flee from Israel? From Israel? The Psalms, a lot of the Psalms of David, where David's talking about, oh, they persecuted me, oh, this one persecuted me, my friend has turned my enemy. He is speaking of things that was happening amongst him and his own people. Whether you would call it black on black or Israelite, Ethiopian, you know what I mean? What happens sometimes, even amongst us,
domestic violence.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was asking a question, how long was David in exile? David actually went behind Philistine lines. Let me picture this. It's as though His Majesty did not go to England, but suppose His Majesty went to Italy. Can you imagine that? King David went behind Philistine lines. In other words, you remember David slew Goliath according to the scripture. He went to the people of Goliath. In fact, they even had to forbid him to fight because they had some skirmishes with the Israelites, and they say, David can't come out with us. I said, wait, what's going on here? David, the elect, the anointed, who the Messiah will come through his loins and everything. Here, he is running for his life. Notice, David was anointed. David was anointed. He was Messiah. He was anointed. And Saul was anointed. There was a scene in the Bible. Some people, like the brother said, read the autobiography, properly. Read and study the Bible properly, because people are missing these gems. David comes to a point where Saul is chasing him, but David now gets the jump on him. Like somebody's chasing you, but you kind of know where they're at, so you can creep up on them. So they creep up on Saul. Saul is sleeping, his men are sleeping, his guards are sleeping. They can just kill Saul. And one of his men named Abishai says, yo, let me jerk him once, just one time. Even how he says it in Hebrew, it reminds me, of us. There's that spirit. Hebrew has that patois. Hebrew has that country. Hebrew has that rawness sometimes that it's like, it sounds like I'm speaking to a nigus. Let me say it like that. Nowadays, nigus. You say nigger, but nigus nowadays. It has that rawness. He's like, let me kill him, right? David says, and here David says, the Lord liveth, shall live, or Ha Yahweh, Piao Exavirin. He's like saying, like, whenever they say the Lord liveth, it's like a declaration. It's like a vow. It's like serious when somebody's going to say the Lord live and then say something after. He said, if you do that, if you shed his blood, I'm going to slay you. He says, reach not your hand against the Lord's anointed. Look at this. Saul want to kill David, because he's jealous. He's like, David's going to take everything from me, everything from my people, my family, and everything. He has this feeling, and in a sense, he's right, but so be, But David now gets the opportunity to kill Saul. Mm-hmm. And he says to his right-hand man, one of his right-hand men, if you do that, I'm going to slay you. Don't lay your hand against the Lord's anointed, right? Now, let's use different language. David is a Christ. Israelite Christ, and Saul is a Christ. Saul is the Christ that's on the throne right now. David is the up and coming, but the one on the throne wanted to kill the up and coming, right? And chases the up and coming out of the land. King David went into exile, right? Yeah. And he went into exile behind the enemy lines. For how long? For 10 years. David had to wait for 10 years. David was on the run for 10 years in foreign land. Haile Selassie was only in exile for 5 years. Yeah, think about it for a moment. And then after he returned, after after David returned, after Saul was dead, only the tribe of Judah came to him. He was a Judahite. Only the tribe of Judah. Israel stayed away from him for the next 10 years. I mean, for the next 7 years. Can you imagine? So when Saul was dead, 10 tribes didn't want to bow, didn't want to acknowledge. Only his homies, only Judah, you know what I mean? Recognized him for 7 years. Then after 7 years, they're like, yo, we flesh of flesh, we bone of bone, man. Like, let's put it away because Judah was prospering. My point is, to your point of waiting. So when I hear greater David, greater son, and look how his mighty defeat, it's like David and Goliath battle. That's what they were saying back then. And then people say, oh, he's not like David. Well, maybe David was short. So he's short like David was short. You know, people say all kinds of things, but they don't get into the story. Get into the story. Haile Selassie went into exile, right? For 5 years, returned to the very day. King David, 10 years. So it's like if Haile Selassie was David, can you imagine if Haile Selassie went to Italy? Imagine went to Italy and not for 5 years, for 10 years.
10 years, I hear you. Okay.
So none of the Israelites, none of the ancient writers, nobody who understood the David Israelite story ever said, David's not really the king. Why he went into exile? No, they're like, yo, that's some G. That's a God move. That's some G stuff. You know what I mean? To go into exile, right? And then to be able to return to your throne, because there's no other king in Ethiopia history from the kings list that we know of, right? Especially Solomonic Davidic kings that left Ethiopia as king under fire and returned. But you know the only other king we have?
And if I'm not mistaken, when the Philistines were going out to war against, who is they were going to fight against? David was like suiting up and ready to go. And the man said, no, tell him stay home, and we ain't want him with us. Remember, he's our enemy, the man. We don't need him.
Oh, yeah, when David was...
And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, David was hurt.
What happened, and I think the scene you're talking about was when...
Who were they fighting against? Refresh me.
It was the first thing when David, Jesse the father, he had older brothers who were warriors, like, you know, like trained military men.
Definitely.
On the shepherd. He was younger, he was doing the shepherd thing, right? He wasn't a trained military man. They had automatic, the latest technology. They had like brass weapons. They had iron. They went from brass, from the brass age to the iron age. They had brass, iron weapons, the best weapons. So David came to bring food. His father said, Jesse said, go get them food, right? So he went to get food. When he went out to get food, he heard this giant slandering God, slandering Israel, saying, y'all punked, y'all coward.
No, not that part, No, not that part. There's a period, there's a time frame when he was in exile. As you said, if the King of Kings was in Italy, he was, as you said, behind the Philistines' encampment there.
Yeah,
and he was so good with them that when they were going to war, there was a scene, I know, when they were going to war, he was setting up and telling his brethren, yeah, we're going to war. And like the captains of the Philistines went to the king and said, hey.
No, you can't come out with us.
Right. Who were they going to fight against?
Yeah. I think it was fighting. I think they might have been fighting against Israel.
Israel, right. So, I mean, so it's like
look at it. This is the one that in the Bible who God has made a covenant exclusively with this man and his seed and his family. I'm talking about David. Mm-hmm. And David is making moves like this, and yet we celebrate it.
And when they told him he couldn't come, I think he was hurt. Like, what?
He was a little bit, but it was like,
man. And yeah, like I've been here and I have showed myself loyal, and this is how
he wanted, David, he wanted to get into, something. My point is that isn't it ironic? So see, look at the hypocrisy. Some would view Haile Selassie in the exile like this, but then say, well, he wasn't like Jesus. He wasn't not even like David, and don't even know what David did. Do we not read what David did? David was in exile for 10 years. He was running around with the Philistines, of all the enemies of Israel, the same ones that he had beat. Notice the same ones that can you imagine that the same
Interesting.
Now you're running with to be protected from your own people who want to kill you.
Wow, some real gangster.
So that's why I mentioned that right there to your point. As you
like it.
About the Lion of Judah, I'm beginning to think, based on the history, since this moniker doesn't seem to be very anciently used. In other words, it's in the Bible, right? But we cannot really find it, or I have not found it in history. It seems like as though it's not that ancient as it's used for actual kings. You know, even though the lion was a symbol for Judah, right, on its totem. And to the people who say that they didn't use animal symbols because the law says don't have no graven image. Stop your nonsense. The law says don't make no graven image of anything in the sky, the land, and the water, and bow down to for God. They had symbols. The ancients used symbols. You understand? They understand the difference between a lion symbol on our banner and bowing down and worshiping the lion like it's God. You know what I mean? I say that because people sometimes have some very silly kind of
the same tablets that say no graven image. They had to put it in a box that they had to sculpture this and had some angels with some wings stretching out, touching one another.
They're doing this right here. So the point of context is and that means that the people who have these ideas, they are totally outside the paradigm. And my people, please don't listen to them. Please do your own study. Because the brother made me see right here that Lion of Judah, the Lion of Judah, I would say in reality that we know now, plus with my knowledge of biblical prophecy, is Haile Selassie the first. And as we read when it said that we will make our abode with him. Notice what Christ said: anyone that love me, keep my words, the Father will love him, and we will make our abode. And what is God? According to the Bible, God is a spirit, right? It says God is a spirit. According to the Bible, God is a spirit. Those who worship him in spirit and in truth. And for those of us who can see the manifestation, we see that spirit and truth in Haile Selassie. A good point you made about who could endure such weight. Who could endure such weight? Weight is a heavy load. I mean, waiting, you know, and having confidence. Remember, he declared the victory. He didn't say, help me out, I might lose everything. No, he said that this is going to come back on you. Flames going to burn Europe. There's going to be a terrible judgment, so forth and so on. And I will be restored to my throne. And 5 years to the very day. That alone. And people say, well, Haile Selassie didn't do it. He actually had the British. You remember the story about David?
Yeah, that's the same Philistine move again.
It's real world, people. It's a real world. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's how come when Jesus spoke to Pilate, Jesus didn't say, hey, you're a Roman, you're going to hell. No, they chopped it up. They had a good conversation, you know, about philosophy and about truth right there. So much so that Pilate was persuaded to try to get Yeshua off. You know what I mean? It's like with Paul in the Bible. Paul's problem wasn't with the Gentiles or other people who are curious about Christ. Paul's problem was with his own people. Just want to kind of point that out right there. But, this is a good conversation. I know we're coming to a fullness of time.
Yes, especially on your part.
But I would like to pick this up if we can go through some of the other points. Yeah. What you got?
I was highlighting this again, the Philistines. David, these are British now.
Other nations.
Yeah, this is when the British were and the allies.
That's Wingate.
Because see, ones have to understand the complexity of the whole battle for the freedom of Ethiopia. So the emperor, remember the emperor? I was showing the pictures last night. I know your time on but there's this famous picture. I always used to wonder, there's this picture of the emperor. I showed it last night, but I wouldn't go for it now. When he was coming through Gibraltar on his way to England. And he had this thing when he was well wrapped up because he was in a lot of pain. He says that in his book. He was just coming off of the battlefield, Mechu, the last battle. And there's this picture where he's leaning up on a pillar, like literally leaning, and he has a cane in the other hand. And I always used to say, hey, You never see the king leaning up. There's only one picture I know, and that was the picture. But I never knew why he was leaning up like that. And when you understand, when you read the autobiography and he's explaining coming through Gibraltar on the way to London and the physical pain he was in, then you observe it and you say, oh, so that's why the king leaning up. Remember, the king never leaning up, never rest on nothing. He's always firm. And when it hit me, like, wow, that's to show you how much anguish and physical pain and the body has gone through. I mean, you've seen the footsteps of the emperor where the nanny would have recounted the damage that you would have noticed on the king's hand because of the mustard gas, even when he was in England, when he got in the accident in the taxi. So I'm saying all of this to highlight now, when he returned, the emperor didn't have to fire a shot, you know. The emperor didn't have to go behind no Gatling gun, no anti-aircraft gun ever again, you know. That was before. When he returned, it was as if he had hundreds and thousands of tanks and planes just going before him, just wiping out, and he was just, like you see here, sitting, explaining to Sandyford and Chapman and Wingate and all the generals, this is where you go. Take them behind the valley over there. Give me a call when you reach. I will drop some pamphlets. You go in and I'll follow after. That was it. The king didn't have to lift up a gun again. And that's very interesting. Just to look at that powerful mystic, you know, leaving the battlefield wounded, my lord, after months sleeping under wherever the king had to sleep and firing shot and licking down plane, to coming back in full comfort, really. Don't get me wrong. It was a lot of pressure. You know, he stayed almost 9 months in Sudan before he could cross the border. But believe me, once the king crossed, bam, 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 it was just clearing the way, on the way to Addis Ababa. And that alone is a discussion by itself, but I will seal it at there.
No, it's interesting. It's interesting. Something what you mentioned about there's something about about the Allies, St. George. You got to pick up more on St. George.
Yeah, I heard you say in one of the programs you did, St. George is a literal character.
Is a person that was actually in the Roman army, but was a Christian during the time of Diocletian, and he was martyred. And Diocletian, the Roman emperor, this is all before Constantine. That's why I have a different view on Constantine, but that's for another time. But it's kind of interesting because he was one of the last great martyrs of a period of time. And I'm beginning to understand why His Majesty and also Black British, the old Britain, the Black Anglo-Saxon Protestants, why they held to St. George. Because St. George is a historical, he represents, like when he says Majesty being wounded and or fatigued and leaning and everything. I thought about this, what the word says, but paraphrasing it right here. We don't have a king, right? A king of kings who cannot be touched with the feeling, with infirmity. We don't have a king who is not, you know, when he said we don't have a high priest who cannot identify with us in our humanity.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You know, like have a God that cannot identify with us. It doesn't make no sense for us. You know, man, if you have a spirit that can't identify with you, what kind of spirit is that? So I like to see that picture, but that is a major picture that shows the humanity. And people can't really understand that even at some people's weakest point, this is when the true divine is working with them and working in them. Many ones don't really see that. Like Paul says, in my weakness, you know, like he gets strength. It's through that weakness, you know what I mean? Sometimes they just deal with the humanity of it, not looking for, as Sizzler say, not looking for nothing strange or extraordinary. You know what I mean? Looking for the divine and something strange. Sometimes the divine is just in what's, you know, the plain reality, man. Yo, I'm just, yo, this is a blessed conversation. I don't want to let this go, even though I know I have to.
You know, have to go, yes.
Yeah, move forward. I would love to, you know, just chop it up more. If I know the eye is very busy. You have a lot going on with the education and with the different offerings. But if there is a time to maybe even chop it up, maybe even before, like just on some other questions between us, maybe not specifically this, but with this specifically, the 25th in mind as a goal. Because yeah, man, I prompt some thoughts and by the eyes reasonment on some things that I can't fully bring out right now. There's some good things. It's like, yeah, man, I help out. Thank you.
Rastafari. So we going over the Rastafari Jews right now.
Rastafari Israelites and Rastafari Israelites. Like going to a lot of them. Yeah, looking at the time right now, we're gonna have to kind of parachute like right in.
We'll give thanks, my Lord, and all blessings and all powers. I wouldn't even say anything else. Just guidance and protection.
I salute. Honorable priest.
Rastafari. Give thanks. All right, we give thanks for the good brethren with us, and of course, give thanks to everyone that would have tuned in this evening. We give thanks for all those who are in the chat who would have given some good words. Of course, I saw some foul words too, but give thanks to those in the chat that took it as their duty to sweep out all the foolish rubbish that may have been there. Well, give thanks to the life giver and the keeper of life, the 25th of May, man. Look at that. Saturday, the 25th of May. 2 faiths, 2 different perspectives. 1 origin, Ethiopia. RasIadonis, Rabbi, Lion of Judah Society. The faithful of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. A scholarly discourse on the subject. Who is the Lion of Judah of Revelation chapter 5? Get your tickets today.
Prosperity is a herbal remedy that has been naturally designed to nourish the prostate gland. Prosperity uses a combination of leaves, roots, and barks to create a tincture designed to nourish your prostate gland. It also will assist in prostate-related issues such as erectile dysfunction, swollen prostates, and problems related to the passage of urine. Call or WhatsApp 728-8289, 728-8289 and get your bottle today. Prosperity.
Family. I mean that family. Our youths, our young ones, our children, we need them, redeem them, and clean them. You see them, or else the enemy will come and scheme them. Family. I mean that family. Education for the nation that's full of salvation, biology, astronomy, and African theology, geography. Family. I love that family. Whatever the age or the stage, that youth will be engaged with tutorials, activities, and videos from the studios of the Priest Isaac Institute of Holistic Knowledge. Family.
The International Homeschool Program is designed and recommended for all ages. The psychological state of our children is very important, especially in the environment that most of us live in. The International Homeschool Program provides online classes, activities, and videos that are fun for the youth and edifies them of their African heritage as well as the higher sciences. To enroll your family today, visit www.priestisaacinstitute.com, go to the main website, and search for Youth Corner. Or you can email priestisaacinstitute@gmail.com for a course sample. Give thanks.